Alright, so if we take the combat system from this, the character design from this, if we use the loot system from that and then ran it via this, and then bolt that together, and somehow factor this in with a bonus pre-order teacup, add in a bunch of trading cards, and I think we're good. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Discussion Mode. I'm Brian Hayes as always, but now I have a sweet-ass jacket. Joining me is Mitchell.
That's a sweet duster, alright.
And of course, Russell.
It works.
So, we dredged back up. We drudged. We were judging through our marsh of topics, and we dredged up the old debate of Steam Curation, because realistically, one of us had watched Jim Sterling's videos one too many times and had it on the mind. And so we were going to talk about that until we realized that it brought up bigger questions that I hadn't necessarily seen too many people answering. And the main one was, what even is a game? Which sounds like we're just going to talk philosophical nonsense, but I promise we're not.
What is life?
Because it comes to, what is life? What does any of this mean? It came down to really three different viewpoints for us. So, for me, I was looking at it as a businessman, and as a businessman standpoint, if the game runs and it displays as the product was advertised, then they've met their promise. It's not actually their responsibility whether you find it fun or not. So, there were obvious examples where this fell apart. So, like with Aliens Colonial Marines, when the trailer looked nothing like the game, obviously that was a betrayal. Likewise, when No Man's Sky didn't have any of the things that were shown to be in the game and stated clearly to be in the game, then that was breaking this definition. But for the most part, if you buy a game and then find out it was a bit shit, it's not necessarily the company lying. And then, of course, you've got when people get angry about walking simulators and that sort of thing, where it's much more artistic than it is a entertainment game. If the game physically runs in the sense that it executes code, and the artist is conveying whatever vision they wanted, then it's largely irrelevant what you thought of it. It was still a functional game. But that's not normally the stances people normally take. Russell's going to be the average gamer.
The regular Joe.
Yeah.
Basically, as a consumer myself and most people, I think when they look at a game, for the most part, they want the quality level to be there. So when they see something on a store, they know at the very least it's going to be a game experience or something that they can at the end go, at least it was artistically worthwhile, or there was something compelling about its content. But then the question comes to be, there are plenty of games out there that kind of really don't even fit in that bracket. It's basically like, who made this game and what was their intended purpose? Sometimes, I think the purpose is literally to scam people out of their money. Like, there was a game called Sobrain Night of Darkness that literally stole assets from a multitude of different games, from Skyrim to Ori and the Blind Forest to Zelda to everything. It was just absolutely inundated with different content being stolen. However, that somehow got past the Sony's curation process and made it onto their store. But that's the kind of game where, that shouldn't exist. Even though you could go, there is fundamental game mechanics in there, they aren't compelling enough or should be weeded out somewhere along the quality control level where they go, this shouldn't exist because, one, it's stealing stuff, and two, the gameplay just isn't worthwhile. Yes, there may be one person out there who enjoy it. However, we got to think of what it represents for us as a brand, as a company, and also what it represents for our consumers. And consumers want good content, so we just have to nut it out and go, no, this game shouldn't exist on our store. And no, certainly shouldn't be advertised on our store.
But that then, of course, brings up, so you have the idea of curation. So, historically, if you bought something from Sony's store or Microsoft store, or to a lesser extent Nintendo store on one of the home consoles, you tended to believe that if something had been put up there, someone from the company had decided that this was a quality product they wanted to represent their brand, which I think came from, especially when the 360 came out and had the Xbox Live Arcade. And in that case, it was a very short list of games. Most of them, at least at the beginning, were trying to be exclusive titles like Castle Crashers, Geometry Wars, Hexic, which is like the weird rotational sort of Tetris clone. The whole setup was much closer to how a brick and mortar store operated, in the sense that there was a limited number of titles and there was just sort of a generally accepted within the community level of quality. But the fun thing about how that changed was it wasn't necessarily that Microsoft went, or Sony or Nintendo went, you know what, let's just sell shit now. It was that back then it took you a lot of money to actually get your product onto the Xbox Live Arcade, much like it actually took you a fair amount of distribution money to put your game in a store. At no point did GameStop go, no, we won't sell that because it doesn't meet our quality standards. It never made it to them in the first place because the people making trash couldn't justify the distribution costs. But now that we have Steam and the way the services are now, those costs don't exist anymore, so you can just fire in whatever you want. Which is fine because refund policies exist, but they themselves are quite interesting.
Yeah, they are. And as a fan of Steam refunds, I've probably refunded so many games, it's ridiculous. Because it's there and I'll use it. It is interesting how similar and different they all are in terms of how they work. Because for one, they're not all automated like Xbox and Steam are. As far as I'm aware from recent testing, PSN is not. But it's interesting they all actually follow 2 weeks as a maximum before you're not allowed to refund them. Which I also looked into it. Seems like that is a standard across. Even Apple has that 14-day thing. The funniest part about all the refund things is that for Xbox and that you can actually play the game. You have a limit of 2 hours. Apart from Sony, where it's like, if you've downloaded it, you ain't getting your money back. So it's an interesting thing they have there.
Well, and I don't understand how you're like, so if it doesn't line up with the way the rest of it works. If you take the product out of the box and then realize the product doesn't meet your requirements, I've never seen it's not generally accepted that because you open the box, you now can't return it. So I'm not actually sure why people, I know people have a lot of a go at Steam, and it probably deserves it, but why aren't more people having a go at Sony?
Not to mention the minimum cost to actually buy anything on that thing. There's a minimum of $10. If you try and buy a shitty game like My Life is, or I Am Mayo, or My Name is Mayo, whatever, you have to pay $10, regardless if it's $1.25.
Yeah, and I would say because the intention of Sony is to release better games in general, like only they are curating for definitely. There is not an automatic just allow it through for whatever reason that people trust them. So the assumption is the games on there are better. So when games like Life with Black Tie pop up, they go, "What the hell is this shit? Like this shouldn't be on there." And that's a kind of breach of trust that happens.
Yeah. It's a good thing no one trusts Steam.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. It's untrustworthy. Where Sony should have that level of trust with it.
Same should Nintendo and Xbox.
Yeah.
But this gets to the other point that always interests me when people say, there are bad games on my service that are somehow disrupting my joy of the good games. So you get complaints generally about 3 types of games. On Steam, there's this almost trading card economy where you achieve certain points of a game, you get given a trading card, and you can sell these trading cards for cents. So there are games that solely seem to exist to generate trading cards. Likewise, on the PlayStation, there are games that seem to solely exist to give you a really quick platinum trophy because people collect them. And then, especially back in the day, there were games on both Steam and Xbox that generated as many achievements as they could, as fast as they could. Some of them so you could jack up the number, some of them for comedic purposes. I can't remember the name of the game now. There was one that, I think it was a Flash game that made a mockery of this. Now, like, if you left the character in the corner of a screen for 2 seconds, it told you found the developer's favorite
I've seen that
corner,
game.
plus
Yeah,
100. Yeah.
Don't remember its name, but I've seen it.
But the part I don't understand about these, and maybe you guys do, is that with the exception of the trading cards, which do have their own little, very self-contained economy, none of them seem to affect anyone else if you're playing them. So I still don't quite understand the anger about them being on the service.
I think that if we're going to go off trading cards, is that it kind of opened the gates for shitty games that you'd buy just so you can get the trading cards to do so. Because the point of trading cards is to level up your Steam account. So you get cards, turn into badges, which levels up your account. And so to get those cards, you actually just need to play the game, and they automatically generate, or you can trade them. But it did kind of start Steam. I mean, Greenlight tried to kind of stop this from happening, but it really only helped for a little while before the floodgates were open, and then it just kind of went to this whole trading cards are now their own economy. Whereas there are games that are literally added just so people can go on wait some time, get some cards, trade some more, turn into a badge, and so forth. Just so that creates kind of its own market, as you were saying. So whether that's just someone taking advantage of it, or just the part of the fact they've let this happen, and it's just going to happen because people are going to make stuff for a market if it exists.
And likewise on the PlayStation market, when you have a community, and I'm not saying all PlayStation players like this, but there's definitely a community there that very much care about what is their peak platinum trophy score, and then directly comparing it to other people. And there are some people who basically have two different lists. There's the list of they have the highest score, and there's the people who've got the list of they have the highest score of good games. And that kind of discrepancy between them, when you've got games coming out like the infamous My Name is Mayo, which was $1, and you get a platinum trophy for not only the PlayStation 4, but you get a platinum trophy for the PS Vita as well, getting you two for the price of $1, was like a no-brainer for the people who were just like high score chasing that platinum level. And in turn, it makes a frigid community that people have their own self-derived lists of things to go, although that doesn't count because they've got this game in the list. So if Sony actually curated it properly and just realized that there is the score system I have, the trophy system I have, if they actually worked out like, okay, we only want to make it so there's a list of valuable items in there. I mean, the problem was it's lost from the get-go because of games like Avatar, as Mitch mentioned, where they already kind of ruined it from the start, and Sony doesn't have the way to remove trophies that they've deemed unworthy, even though the community may have. However, they should certainly be putting some effort in to maybe realizing this game isn't deserving of having a trophy because it breaks other games' logic. Like getting a platinum trophy in Bloodborne and getting a platinum trophy in Mayo is no level of consistency there, and it kind of ruins that entire system for a lot of people in general.
So they don't have a financial value, but they have like a community stance value.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. But see, the funny part about all of those is, regardless of whether those games exist or not, the argument that always comes up is whether you should be allowed to return them or not. So when you see the screenshots of Mayo, and then you play it, is there actually that different? I imagine what's shown and what you actually get are largely the same thing. It doesn't seem to be the people buying it who are angry about it. It seems to be the people who haven't bought it that are angry.
My Name is Mayo has the visual advantage where it doesn't actually lie that much. Like, unlike Life is Black Tiger, where it has, like, interesting illustrations of tigers and stuff, you go, oh, that game might be okay, but, I mean, it's already a red flag when you're not showing the game, you're showing little images of tigers and stuff. But My Name is Mayo does accurately represent what the game is. It's just a game that has circumvented, like, a certain pool of community and gone, oh, we can release this game and people will buy it, in turn just creating, like, a list of potentially... most consumers won't want it, but there is some level of people who want it. And then is that the kind of... Are they the people that we want buying the games on our system to begin with? And the answer, in terms of a platform, is Sony doesn't care. There's like, oh, it makes money for us. It all works.
Putting aside the sort of like elitism of them versus us on platinum trophy collectors, the interesting thing that has spun out of all of this is the ACCC, which is the Australian Consumer Affairs Group,
otherwise known as the AC.
The AC. They actually took Steam to federal court a couple of years back. So they looked at Steam's refund policy and said that it was false and misleading representation about a consumer's right to obtain a refund for a game if they were not of an acceptable quality. Now, I couldn't find what they deemed to be not an acceptable quality, but it was noted that even if a very small percentage of Valve's customers had read the misrepresentations, this might have involved hundreds, possibly thousands of consumers being affected. So it appears that even within the legal system, there's now a recognition that while they haven't defined what was misleading, if enough people say it was a bit shit, then the law is stepping up to go, you know what, fair enough, it's a bit shit. So maybe sometime we'll come back and do a proper bashing of Steam's Greenlight and what's the new one called?
Steam Direct.
It went so
Directly
under the radar.
Steam.
Steam Direct.
Steam for you.
It went so
Direct.
under the radar. Maybe we'll come back and dig into them a bit more. But
Bring out your
at least for
spades.
this week,
Get your shovels.
knock over some tombstones and get digging.
Get an excavator and just dig up the whole graveyard.
But that's a terrifying metaphor, so I'm going to end this right now. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I've been Brian. Joining me was Mitchell and Russell. This has been Discussion Mode. We are Optional Extra. And good night. How shit was that?